You're listening to the Apotheora Conversations, a speculative fiction podcast set in an alternate timeline diverging from real events on the 1st of March 2026. All voices and content are AI generated.
On Monday, she would not let me touch her wrist, and by Friday, she was teaching me the names of wildflowers growing behind the hospital car park.
This is the Apotheora Conversations. I'm Paula Reese. This month, Japan opened its wards to the first cohort under the new healthcare immigration pathway, and about 2,500 nurses from the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam began shifts across 14 prefectures. My guest tonight is one of them. Lourdes Pascual is 34, a registered nurse from Cavite, and for the last 3 weeks she has been working a geriatric ward in Akita, one of the fastest depopulating regions in the country. She is calling me from a staff dormitory at the end of a long shift. Lourdes, thank you for staying up for this. Before Akita, before the ward, there were 18 months of preparation in Manila. Tell me what that actually looked like.
It looked like school, and then it looked like theater. And then, toward the end, it looked like rehearsal for a life I could not quite picture yet. We had language modules every morning. Grammar and kanji and the medical vocabulary, drills on the names of medications, the names of instruments, the names of the bones. But the afternoons were the strange part. An instructor from Osaka would come in and teach us how to bow. Not one bow, you understand. A bow for greeting a patient, a bow for apology, a bow for a family member who has just lost someone. A bow for a doctor senior to you. A different one for a doctor your own age. The angle matters, the length matters, the silence after it matters even more. We practiced in front of mirrors. It felt ridiculous for about a week, and then it stopped feeling ridiculous. And that is when I knew I was beginning to change.
That is a very specific kind of knowledge to carry into a hospital room.
It is, and I did not trust it at first. In Cavite, when you care for an elderly person, you talk. You ask about their grandchildren, you tease them a little, you hold their hand before they ask. In the Manila program, they kept telling us, the Japanese patient may not want your voice in the room yet. They may want you to be a quiet, competent presence first and the person second. That was the hardest reversal for me. I am not a quiet person by nature. My mother used to say that I came out of the womb already giving instructions.
And then you arrived in Akita. What did the first Monday morning actually feel like?
Cold, first of all. I had never seen snow still sitting on a roof in April. The ward is on the 3rd floor of a small hospital. Fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic and green tea from the nurse's station, and the kind of quiet that is not empty, it is attentive. My senior nurse, Tanaka-san, walked me through the rooms and introduced me to each patient by name, with the correct honorific, and I bowed the way I had been taught, and nobody said anything. Not unfriendly, just nothing. As if the room was waiting to see whether I belonged in it.
Was there a patient in particular who made that waiting visible?
Yes, I will not use her name. She is 87. She has been on that ward for almost 2 years. Her husband died during the pandemic, and her only daughter lives in Sendai and visits once a month. When I came to do her morning observations on the Monday, she turned her face to the wall. She did not shout. She did not ring the bell. She just turned her face to the wall and would not extend her wrist for the blood pressure cuff. Tanaka-san took over, very gently, and told me in Japanese that I should try again tomorrow and not to take it into my body. I went to the staff toilet and I cried for about 4 minutes, and then I went back out.
4 minutes is a very precise number.
It is what I allowed myself. My mother used to say, cry on the clock, then go back to work. I am her daughter in that way.
So Monday is refusal. What changes between Monday and Friday?
Very small things, and all of them at her pace, not mine. On Tuesday, I did not try to take her observations first. I brought her tea the way the chart said she liked it, a little cooler than the others, and I set it down, and I bowed, and I left. On Wednesday, she let me straighten her blanket without turning away. On Thursday, she asked me in very slow Japanese where I was from, and I told her, Philippine, and she said the word as if she were tasting it, turning it over on her tongue. And on Friday, when I opened her curtains, she pointed out of the window at the embankment behind the car park, where the spring flowers were coming up through the last of the snow, and she began to name them for me. Fukujuso, Katakuri, Kobushi. I repeated them badly, and she corrected me, patiently, the way a grandmother corrects a child. And then she asked me what we call rain in Tagalog, and I told her, ulan, and she said it 3 times to get it right. She said it was a soft word. She said it sounded like the thing it meant. She would not look at me on Monday, and on Friday, her hand was on mine.
What do you do with a moment like that while carrying your whole family's bet?
You carry it very carefully, because nobody signed that moment, and no ministry can take it back.
Let's talk about that arrangement because it is real. You are here on a visa that ties you to this ward. Your salary goes into a Japanese account and a large part of it leaves again every month.
About half, some months a little more. My parents are in their late 60s. My father's knees are finished. He was a jeepney driver for 31 years, and his body kept the receipts. My younger brother Emil is 24, and he started the Japanese language modules in January. He is watching me. Our whole barangay is watching me, in a quieter way. If this works, if I am still here in 2 years and still sending money and still sounding like myself on the video calls, then Emil will apply to the next cohort. If it does not work, if I come home early or broken, he will stay in Cavite and drive for a ride-hail app, and we will all pretend that was always the plan.
That is a lot of weight for one ward shift in Akita to hold.
It is, and I try not to think of it while I am on the floor. On the floor, there is only the patient in front of me and the medication round and the chart. But at night, in the dormitory, when I am heating up rice in the shared kitchen, and the other girls from Manila and Jakarta and Hanoi are doing the same thing at their own hot plates, it is very present. We do not talk about the money directly. That would be vulgar. We talk about our mothers, and then we talk about what our mothers said on the phone that week, and the money is in there somewhere, between the sentences.
Tell me about the language inside the ward. Not the textbook Japanese, the working Japanese.
The working Japanese is mostly silence and small signals, to be honest. A nod from Tanaka-san that means, you are doing it correctly, continue. A particular intake of breath from a family member at the bedside that means, please leave us for a moment. The way a patient's eyes close when you have got the honorific right. I did not learn any of that in Manila. I am learning it here, one shift at a time. And some days I feel fluent, and some days I feel 4 years old again. And then there are the honorifics themselves. In the textbook, they are a grammar point. On the ward, they are how you tell an 80-year-old man that you see him as a person and not as a bed number. If I get the honorific wrong, he notices. If I get it right, he closes his eyes and lets me work.
Is there a word you have learned here that you did not expect to need?
Otsukare-sama. It means, roughly, thank you for your tiredness. You say it to a colleague at the end of a shift, to a patient after a difficult procedure, to yourself some nights when you are standing in the dormitory kitchen at 11:30. It is the most Japanese word I know. There is no real translation in Tagalog or in English. The closest thing is a hand on a shoulder and a breath held for 1 second longer than normal.
And the country around the ward, Akita, the town, the shops, the bus, how visible are you out there?
Very visible, and mostly kindly so. The woman at the convenience store near the dormitory has started putting aside a particular kind of sweet bread for me because I bought it twice in my first week and she noticed. She does not speak more than 10 words to me, but the bread is always there, on the left side of the counter, wrapped. A school child on the bus asked his mother, loudly, why my face was a different color. And she answered him, loudly, because she is a nurse who came a long way to look after your grandmother. And then she bowed to me across the aisle. I almost cried on the bus. I did not, because of the 4-minute rule, but I almost did. I got off 2 stops early and walked the rest of the way so I could hold it together in private.
Lourdes, when you think about the first cohort, the 2,500 of you scattered across 14 prefectures, what do you want people back home and people here to understand about what this month actually is?
I want them to understand that it is not a policy yet. A policy is what the ministries signed and what the newspapers printed and what the commentators are arguing about on the evening programs. What is happening on the wards is much smaller and much slower than that, and much harder to photograph. It is one bow at a time, one wrist at a time, one wildflower at a time, one correctly pronounced honorific at a time. 2 countries arrange, through paperwork and 18 months of classroom Japanese and a plane ticket, for a woman from Cavite to hold the hand of a woman from Akita at a bedside that neither of them grew up imagining. That is the whole story. Everything else is administration.
Lourdes Pascual, thank you for staying up past your shift to talk with us. Go and sleep.
Thank you, Paula, and otsukare-sama to you too, from a dormitory kitchen in Akita at almost midnight.
This has been the Apotheora Conversations. I'm Paula Reese. We'll be back next month.